Long before there was a Washington, D.C., or even a United States, this land was home to thriving indigenous nations and communities. Today, we're touring an often overlooked Smithsonian Museum and exploring why the National Museum of the American Indian deserves a spot on your D.C. itinerary. The National Museum of the American Indian is one of 17 Smithsonian museums, plus the National Zoo, located here in D.C. It's located here on the National Mall, right next to the Air and Space Museum. This place is free to visit, open daily except December 25th, and no timed entry tickets are required here. If you're only imagining rows of baskets, towering totem poles, and painted bison hides, well, that's part of the story at this museum, but not really the whole thing. This museum takes a different approach. It's part history, part art museum. Less about displaying thousands of artifacts and more about telling the vibrant, complex, and often difficult story of indigenous communities across the United States. It's a bit smaller than the other Smithsonian museums like the Natural History or Air and Space, so set aside 1 to 2 hours for your visit here. The exhibits here lean heavy on storytelling with a lot of reading, so to be honest, families with younger kids probably aren't going to get as much out of this particular museum. That said, it is one of my favorite museums on the mall, and teens and adults will walk away with a deeper understanding of Indigenous history and culture, past and present. Keep in mind, I'm visiting in June 2025, and exhibits change, so check the website before you go. The museum suggests that you start your tour on the 4th floor and then work your way down, so that's what we're gonna do. Our first stop is Nation to Nation, Treaties Between the United States and American Indian Nations, a powerful exhibit that explores the history of Indigenous Americans and their relationship with the U.S. government throughout history, from the earliest colonies to today. The exhibit includes original artifacts like these ceremonial Seneca feasting bowls and ceremonial gifts exchanged to commemorate agreements between nations. Throughout the museum, you'll find several short documentaries on display, an opportunity for Native voices to tell their story, plus it's a nice chance to sit and rest your feet in a cool room. The exhibit explores that while treaties with the earliest colonists and fledgling American government were based in generally mutual need and respect for their neighbors, by the 1800s, relations between the US government and Indian nations had turned decidedly violent. What followed was a century of abuse, forced relocations, and broad inequality. It's a sobering exhibit at times. It's also a story of resilience and hope, telling the story of how modern American Indians have and continue to successfully fight for recognition, rights, and sovereignty. Across the hallway, Unbound features narrative artworks from Plains artists, past and present. Here you'll see historic hides, muslins, and drawings displayed side by side with contemporary works. The pieces tackle a huge range of topics, from war stories, ceremonies, daily life, identity, and the modern Native experience. Downstairs, head to Sublime Light, a modern art exhibit showcasing the works of a Diné Navajo artist, D.Y. Big A, whose stunning textile fiber art bridges tradition and very innovative practices. Raised in traditional Navajo weaving traditions, Big A brings a contemporary voice to this ancient technique, using bold color and experimental modern design to convey the beauty of the Southwest. As someone who has spent a good deal of time in and around the Navajo Nation in the southwestern US, I found these pieces incredibly moving. If you're a fan of contemporary art or textile arts, you really want to see this one. Next, step into Americans. Images and names tied to Native Americans are everywhere in US life. So common, we usually don't even notice them. Think the Land O'Lakes butter logo, movies and television characters, or the Tomahawk missiles. The exhibit dives into this phenomenon, how Native imagery and stories and names have been woven into everything from our sports mascots and product logos to state names and sitcoms. It also takes a deeper look at some well-known moments from Indigenous history and how they are remembered and misremembered in American culture, from the Trail of Tears to Pocahontas. On this floor, you'll also find a number of smaller exhibits showcasing Indigenous artifacts from the museum's collections. Right now, you can also see Making a Statement, which includes 2 gowns worn by Lily Gladstone at the 94th Academy Awards and Vanity Fair after party, where Gladstone was the first Native American nominated for Best Actress for her work in the movie Killers of the Flower Moon. Her gowns were a custom collaboration by Gucci and an Indigenous artist, using Indigenous-inspired designs and this beautiful porcupine quill technique. Down on the 2nd floor, stop by the small exhibit Return to a Native Place, which introduces the Native peoples who were the original landowners of what is now Washington, D.C. and the Chesapeake Bay region. Finally, you can see a small photography exhibit, Insight, Photos and Stories from the Archives, which has an intimate look at the everyday photos of Indigenous life from across the decades. If you're hungry, don't miss Mitsitam, one of the best cafes in any Smithsonian museum in DC. The name translates to "Let's Eat" in the Indigenous language of the Delaware and Piscataway peoples. Here you can get food inspired by the broad Native culinary heritage from across the U.S., including coastlines, woodlands, and the Four Corners region. For my 2 cents, you really don't want to miss the dessert fry breads, especially if you've never enjoyed one of these fluffy, delightful fried doughs before. Outside the museum, take a stroll through the native plant gardens, flowing water features, and art installations from various native artists that surround the museum. As you leave, you don't want to forget to visit the National Native American Veterans Memorial, a powerful tribute to Indigenous men and women who have served in the U.S. military over the years. Family and tribal leaders can leave offerings and prayer flags, while a collection of Indigenous songs honoring veterans plays in the background. It's a solemn and contemplative space, it's beautiful, and my favorite of the veterans memorials on the National Mall. If you're planning a trip to DC or just want to learn more about our amazing museums, monuments, and explore more things to do in the Capital Region, don't forget to hit like, hit subscribe, and I'll see you next time.